Yes, we are live now. Welcome to the Human Skills Project. As we say in our project, that this journey is simple, but we complicate it. We discuss tools that can help us to uncomplicate the journey. And with me, Ted Meridian is a professional speaker and author. So today, we are hoping to discuss the model Ted developed, the law of cooperative action, and the tenets in very simple and plain language so that anybody can understand how human relationship can thrive, using tenets that Ted Meridian has developed. Ted, take it away.
Okay, hi, Feroz. Thank you. Last week we talked about the interconnectedness and our problem as human beings about how do we fit in to that interconnectedness, or how do we stop trying to control the stream. In my research, I developed 6 easy tenets or laws. And as I go through those, and if we don't have enough time today, as we go through those, we can continue on for our
Next
next week as
episode.
well.
Yeah.
Okay. So the first one is that in my research, I found out that all people want to be loved, cared for, just noticed. So tenet number one is the individual celebrates the foundation of all relationships. Okay. That's twofold. First, you celebrate yourself. There's nothing wrong with you. You're not broken. You celebrate you as the individual. But more importantly, you also celebrate the people around you. We have a tendency to judge. We have a tendency to look and go, "Oh, look at that person." So instead, celebrate everybody's right to be the individual. That's one of our problems again in society is we shun individuality sometimes, depending on the culture you're in. So the model is very clear. I celebrate your right even to be a two percenter, even to be a jerk, even to be an idiot, because that's your journey. Remember, we're going to talk about how do I then take that person who may be adversely affecting me and neutralize how that behavior is affecting me. So as we go through the model, you're going to see that. So number one, it's really important to stop judging who other people are and what they are. It's more important to say, I celebrate your right, even not to agree with me, even to be against me, because that way then remember, we're always talking about I'm in control without being controlling. That's always going to be a key that we're going to have. So number one, I celebrate your right to be who you are. Number two is all individuals should be allowed to do anything they want as long as they don't knowingly adversely affect the planet or anyone on it. So number two, in simple terms, is I cannot knowingly harm. Now, if you go back to Sanskrit in the old days, there's a word called ahimsa.
Mm-hmm.
Ahimsa means harmlessness. So the idea is to do no harm. Let me give it to you in a simple way. If I want to put ketchup in my coffee, that's my business. As long as I'm not harming you,
Mm-hmm.
I can put ketchup in my coffee. Also, it's not my job to have you put ketchup in your coffee if you don't want to.
Mm-hmm.
Or it's not your job or goal to stop me from putting ketchup in my coffee. Is that clear? Is that as simple as?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I will need to ask you some follow-up question. Is that okay?
Yeah, yeah, by all means.
Okay, yeah. So um, some people, let's say cynical people, let's say from the fields of sociology, you and I are both graduates of sociology, so we can probably have a good conversation about it.
That's right.
Um, Human beings have an inner tendency to belong to a group. Because if I talk about evolutionary biology, I will give a reference, and then as you and I have talked about, is that a lot of the times I'll bring references, academic references, to substantiate our conversation. So Yuval Noah Harari, one of his famous books, *Sapiens*, where Harari argues that human beings are not physically as powerful as dinosaurs were, or many other animals, let's say lions or tigers. But human beings have one very unique capacity of becoming tribal.
Right.
Humans, like, think about a stadium where you have millions of people divided into, these are the supporters of Barcelona, these are the supporters of Man. I'm sorry if any of the football fans hear this in future. I mean, we're not making fun of you. We're just trying to understand a human condition. So it's literally possible in a stadium to see millions of people supporting team A, millions of people supporting team B, and if team A scores and you see a million people, they have a unique capacity of syncing. And DC Aramiso Harari says that this unique capacity of human beings to belong to a group gave them such evolutionary advantage that they have gone on top of the food chain despite not having sharp tooth or claws or fangs, like or not having the capacity to fly. Now, this has exactly become our challenge now. We live in a time where tribalism is a serious problem. We
It is.
are at each other's throat. So, my question to you, our evolutionary conditioning has made us wanting to be a group. How do we fight that?
Well, the key is, I guess my model is taking us to the next step. We
Hmm.
become so tribal and so
Hmm.
identified by the group that we're actually shunning difference within the group.
Hmm.
Yet it's difference over the period of evolution that has created the humankind or any species to grow and change. It's that
Hmm.
difference that does that. Now, in evolution, from what I know, and I'm not a scholar on that, is that when
Hmm.
something does evolve and change or becomes different from the group or from the norm,
Hmm.
sometimes I guess it dies off, but a lot of times it doesn't. All of a sudden, there's a new group coming. There's a new way of being that comes into play. What my model is about, because we're the sentient being as individuals. Yes,
Hmm.
I want to be part of a group, but I also want to be my own person within that group.
Hmm.
And as long as I'm congruent with the group, then I stay with the group. Our problem is that when we become incongruent with the group shuns us, or we're afraid to be incongruent because we're afraid to be shunned. The model, as we go through it, is about me being strong enough to be authentically me, at the same time doing my best not to harm the group. And as we go through to tenet number 4, you're going to see, unless the group is harming me, because that's the circle. So tenet number 1, I celebrate your right to be you.
Hmm.
Tenet number 2, I do my best not to harm you. Now, here's a key. You brought up the two football teams. What if I just simply don't want to be part of each team?
Hmm.
What's wrong with that? We have to give ourselves permission not to be part of the team. Because if we get so involved in the team that we lose our identity, tribalism takes over, and that's where authoritarianism, communism, all that stuff takes over, because it's, you cannot think for yourself. The only thought is for the team.
Yeah, you know something. I want to find out. I want to give you another reference that actually supports your work directly in connection. So Brené Brown is a big author, American author, social worker, and her books. She has a lot of famous, very well respected books in this field. So this is what she argues in terms of belongingness. Correct me if I'm wrong, if I understood it wrong. So your model is suggesting us are giving us courage. That's what I want to hear, because that's what I hear in my conversation with you, is that it's the psychological maturity, spiritual maturity, to understand that I can be me as long as my actions are not harming anybody. And
Right.
you are suggesting that we can only be doing that when we're authentically us. Because when I pretend to be somebody who I am not, in that case, it creates a friction, a tension in me. I mean, I'll give you one example. Recently, one of my friends wrote that in his social media, in her social media. So she's a trans woman and trans scholar as well. One of her friends, a gay man from Bangladesh, an artist, he committed suicide. So basically, being a member of the queer community, being who he was, he felt not accepted. And that feeling of loneliness, again, I haven't talked to him when he was alive. I don't know him personally. But this is what my friend has written, is that from time to time, that man would reach out to my friend and write a sentence or two. But the sense of not being accepted was weighing heavy on him.
That
And he took his life.
well, see, that's because, and
Mhm,
it's a sad thing what you're saying. So I
mhm,
don't want to minimize that at all.
mhm, mhm,
But the sad part is he made his 2% his 98%,
mhm,
because I'm totally out there. And
mhm,
most of the people don't care
mhm,
about me. Most of the
mhm,
people don't care about the way you speak because it's not full fluent English, if you know what I
mhm,
mean.
mhm, mhm.
But we
I had to
tend
overcome that, Ted. I had to overcome that.
but my point is we tend to hang on to that 2% who are
Mhm,
going to criticize us, whether it's criticizing our glasses, our hair, our dress. And
mhm,
so I wish I was able to speak to that person or give that person my model,
mhm,
because the model would tell him it's okay to be who you are. Tenet number one, it's okay. Let me bring in the rainbow metaphor, seeing that we're
mhm,
talking about this, because this is important. Because when you
mhm,
talk about the group versus the individual, which of
mhm,
course is a sociological problem that we talk about all the time.
mhm,
So when the red, a person, comes together with the yellow, another
mhm,
person, no matter what that relationship is, and I use that in my model, whether it's friendship, love relationship, business relationship, it doesn't matter. Buying a chocolate bar, the rainbow metaphor comes into play. So when the red comes together with the yellow, excuse me, to form the orange, the relationship, too many times the red or the yellow uh, keeps telling the other color what color they should be based on their perception. So the red tries to draw the color out of the yellow, which then screws up or messes up the orange. So the relationship's dead. So the group is dead, the team is dead, because we keep trying to suck the color out of the other person. What I hope people will learn out of the Human Skills Project is how not to allow the other color to suck their color out of them.
mhm.
So, in other words, your friend who took his life, the model will tell him, be your vibrant color, whatever that is. Because 98% of the people you come in contact with will celebrate your right to be that color. It's that 2% that will always try to stop you from being your color. So the key in human skills is to identify and not allow that 2% to do that to you. It's
Okay.
harder. It's harder, depends on the culture you're brought up in. It's
Mm,
hard, depends on the family. It's not an easy thing. It's not easy. It's not
mhm,
easy to stand up and say, this is who I am, and have
mhm.
someone shoot you. Not
Yeah,
easy.
yeah. I mean, and we also have to recognize that the queer community had to go through a long, long struggle to be where they are
Yeah.
today.
But
And
it's not just the
mhm,
gay, it's not just the queer community. It's
mhm,
the person of color. It's a male. Like,
mhm,
people, the feminists sometimes say, "Oh, you got it easy as being a male."
mhm,
No, it's so difficult to be a male in our society, to stand up to what that false narrative of being what a male should be in
mhm.
society.
Yeah.
So it's being able to say, this is my true self, whatever that is,
Mhm.
whether it's a black man, a brown man, a woman, person in a wheelchair, it doesn't matter. This is who I am.
Yeah, I
And
mean, I hold myself to this standard for at least this kind of a conversation, that when I say something, if I say the word pedagogy, please stop me and tell me no. Say this is school teaching, because that's not helpful. So I
but
will not use any jargon.
no, I understand, but you can still bring it in once in a while and we can laugh about it.
Yeah, and if you say something that I don't understand, I'm using a conversation, a pattern. You see the advantage that you and I have, because English is not my first language. A lot of the times, I'm sure that you remember 8 years ago, when I first came to Canada, when I wouldn't understand a lot of the jokes, I would tell you, Ted, what is it? And you still crack jokes with me, and I don't know what it is, and then you tell me, oh, this is what it is, right? I
Yeah.
mean, this is this
The
is a
English language, is amazing because there's so many double entendres, two ways to take things.
yeah,
It,
exactly,
it's
yeah.
difficult but you know what? Your English is better than my Bangladesh. So you're one
Then
up
Bangla.
on that. You're up
Bangla,
on.
exactly.
Well,
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
funny. I read something someplace
Mm,
that someone said, "Don't criticize someone whose English isn't perfect because
mm.
they know two languages and you don't."
Yeah, yeah.
Right? So
I want you to recognize something that I try to understand, because what happens in moments of shock, what happens in moments of so, and now that I'm recalling, I'm not going to say the name in person to humiliate that person, but I can tell you the name, in person. So, nearly 8 years ago, when I first came to Canada, I was sitting in a cafe, and I'm writing my paper, reading. Obviously, Western academia is very demanding. No joke about it. So I met an elderly person. A German Canadian man, and he was asking me, "So what do you do?" And I said, "Where are you from?" I said, "I'm from Bangladesh." And he knew that I told him that I have this many siblings. I mean, that, I have
yeah.
a living 10 siblings. I mean, my mother gave birth to 14 children, and 4 died, so means we're 10. Um, and when he knew that, when he came to know that I'm from Bangladesh and I teach kids who are marginalized, how you say here, homeless kids, um, at one point he said to me, "Why do you work for those kids? They don't deserve to live. In Bangladesh, they breed like rats and rabbits." At one point in his life, he worked with some Bangladeshi, and his experience wasn't good. After so many years, at this point, that I'm talking about 8 years ago, if the Feroz was talking to you now, if this Feroz would be talking to that old man, just because he's a old man, I wouldn't try to find an excuse to accept. And I was actually laughing out of embarrassment, didn't know how to translate things. Um, I was laughing. I was trying to explain, in Bangladesh, the idea of family and etc. etc. But now that I look back, it sort of feels like what that man did was profoundly not fair. What he did, he humiliated my culture. He disrespected my family values and my values. But I didn't know how to actually. But if you were me sitting there with the knowledge that you have, with the model that you embody, how would you neutralize that? And again, I tell you that I come from a culture where respecting elders is of prominent value. We do not. So you know that, and you and I have talked a lot about it. How would you deal with that?
Well, there are several ways we could use the feel, felt, found, which I'm sure we're
Mm,
going to talk about from time to
mm,
time. But
mm,
part of it is to validate his right to feel that way. You see, that when you neutralize, the first thing is you feel, wow, that must feel awful. You must have
mm,
had a bad experience.
mhm,
You know,
mhm,
yes, in our country,
mm,
family is important, and a lot
mhm,
of us have large families.
mhm,
And that's not just our culture, by the way. And so you bring the knowledge in, you share knowledge.
mm,
Various cultures have large families. As a
mhm,
matter of fact, in North America, large families were prominent until the 20th century when it started going down. If you look at after the war, my family had 4 children. My daughter has 2 children. My other daughter has none. So families are shrinking depending on the times. And I'm sorry you feel that way. That's one answer. If he's really judgmental, and usually an elderly person probably is faith-based at that point, if we look at that, I would very simply, if I wanted to be a little
bit cheeky,
I would say, where's your letter? What letter do you have? Well, unless you have a letter from God saying he took the day off and that you're in charge, then I'm none of your business if you don't have that letter. But thanks for caring about me. And I would try to change the conversation. But realizing that that's his worldview, that's the way he was brought up. That's why when somebody in my mind is homophobic or racist or sexist, I won't attack them back right off the bat. I will try to understand where they're coming from. So it's educate rather than segregate. That's the theory. But if the person starts hammering and hammering as a true 2%er, one who is not listening to answer back, not listening to learn, as we talked about before, then I would simply find a way to say, oh, well, time's up. I got to go. Thanks for the conversation, but I'm going to leave. There's no sense in doing this because you'll never convince them. That's trying to control the stream. You can't do that. And
I want to clarify further. So one of the things that I love about your model is that I will not be your victim.
That's right.
So when somebody attacks your dignity, human dignity, or says something which is dehumanizing, how do I respectfully tell them that how I feel, but at the same time not compromise my commitment to uphold the value of humanity that I would like to carry in me, doesn't matter what circumstances that I face?
Well, first of all, nobody can hurt me but me. There's an old North American, I'm not sure whether the same thing happens in Bangladesh or not, but there was a little verse we used to, when we're growing up: sticks and stones will break my bones, but names will never hurt me. Sticks and stones will break my bones, but names will never hurt me. And you know what? It's hard not to take it personally. It's hard not to do that. But there's ways around it. There's. Have you ever heard of the story of the garbage truck? So basically, what happens is, and hopefully this will answer your question. This guy gets picked up in the airport by a taxi driver. The taxi driver is about to leave. Car pulls out in front of the taxi driver, cuts the taxi driver off, and almost gets into an accident. But the guy driving the car turns around, yells and screams at the taxi driver. The taxi driver smiles and waves and says, "Has a nice day." Well, the passenger said, "Why did you do that? He almost killed us. Why are you just letting him off the hook?" He says, "Well, haven't you heard of the garbage truck? There are people running around today and they're full of garbage. They're full of garbage. And sometimes that garbage overflows and spills out on us. But we shouldn't take that garbage and pass that garbage to other people. Instead, try and figure out that person must be having a really bad day for him to be that angry." And so you just say, because again, I can't control that stream. I can't control that person. That's one of the keys in the Human Skills Project. I cannot control that person. And for me to go out and try to change that person's thinking is a waste of time, especially if you get angry at that person when you're trying to change it, because now nobody's listening. Right? So by keeping calm, my model's almost, someone told me one time, almost like martial arts. If you stay calm, you're better off to see how to defend yourself and neutralize the shot that's coming at you. But if you get angry, you start flailing. So the idea of staying calm, and it's not easy. I'm telling you, I want to lose it all the time. And there are times when I do. There are times when somebody is so annoying, such a 2%er, I'll just say, "Stop. I've had enough of your crap. this conversation's over. And I walk away.
Mhm. Mhm. One of the things that you tell all the time that I share a lot, I say that no relationship is a relationship if there is no option of walking out of it.
That's right. That's our tenet number 6, which we'll talk about at
Yeah.
another time.
Mhm.
But yeah, you've got to be able to walk away. You've got to be able
Mhm.
to walk away. Now, if
Mhm.
we look at tenet number 1,
Mhm.
that I celebrate your right to be you.
Mhm.
Getting back to that into this conversation. Tenet number 2, I can knowingly harm you.
Mhm.
Right. So
Mhm.
tenet number 3 actually comes into play with the answer of this old man that you're talking about.
Mhm.
Tenet number 3 is all relationships are based on a constant negotiation of boundaries by using respectful, honest, and direct communication in order to bring a clear understanding of our interaction.
Mhm.
So let's break that down to 3. Relationships are fluid. That person, that older man, let's use him as an example then as we follow
Mhm.
this thread.
Mhm.
That older man may change his opinion if you help educate him about Bangladeshi people.
Mhm.
So relationships are fluid.
Mhm.
If you speak to him directly, honestly, and respectfully,
Mhm.
he might be open to listening to what you want to say. The third part is a clear understanding of our interaction. We don't know what happened to him earlier. We don't know that maybe his daughter ran away with a Bangladeshi man and got pregnant. We have no idea. You see what I mean? And yet, right away, we come into the judgment play. How dare you say that about me? How dare
Mhm.
you say that about my people?
Mhm.
Instead of trying to figure out, help me understand why you believe that.
Mhm.
Well, that's what I heard on Fox News. Ah,
Mhm.
you know what I mean? So,
No, this is, in another episode, I want to talk to you explicitly on the topic that don't try to control the stream. This is such a simple but deceptively complex if you don't understand its depth.
that's right. That's
Uh,
100%. And when we talk about getting upset with what someone says, um,
mhm,
in the model we have a module. We put an M in front of ego. It's the me-go. It's
mhm,
me who gets upset. It's me who gets annoyed. It's me who gets frustrated. It's me who gets angry. It's me who gets. So you have to silence your me-go,
mhm,
especially when somebody's attacking you.
mhm,
You silence the me-go, and then you decide, how am I going to answer this? Respectfully, directly, and honestly, telling them how their actions have affected you, never what they're doing wrong. Here's the key: two percenters, not two percenters, 100% of the people, when they make a decision or say something or do something, at that point they did it, they honestly believe they're right.
mhm,
They do.
mhm,
They honestly believe they're right. Bin Laden believed he was right. Trump believes he's right. I can name all the way through history, believed they were right. Hard to believe that in your mind as a sane person, that person who is perceived to be crazy or stupid or bullying or destructive. Even a person who shoots somebody, at the time they do it, they believe they're right. The person who steals something, at the time they do it, they believe they're right. That doesn't
or
mean
the find the excuse. Yeah, I find the excuse that I
that
am. Mhm,
that doesn't mean they're right. So don't. I
mhm,
hope viewers don't get the idea that I believe. You
mhm,
know. But the point is if you believe that what they're doing is right, then instead of attacking them, try to understand why they believe they were okay to do that.
mhm.
And hopefully you'll have a chance before they shoot you. You know what I mean?
Yeah, thank you,
Yeah.
Ted. So that's all the time we had for this episode. We will talk about the other two tenets in the next episode, which is next Sunday. And everybody, thank you very much for listening to our conversation. And if you have any question, comments, or any clarification questions, you can leave us in the comment section. We will try to answer your questions as fast as possible in the subsequent episodes. And have a wonderful day, Ted.
And if you really enjoyed it, please tell others.
Yeah. All right. Exactly. Have a wonderful day. Bye bye.
Bye bye.